Raider Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Renz here, host of the Raiders Report. And coming up here on today's show, I'm going to be reacting and reviewing episode 4 of Netflix's series Receiver. If you haven't seen it yet, don't watch this because I'm going to be breaking it down in order. If you're wondering, Mitch, when are you going to talk about episode 5? That's going to be a breakdown tomorrow here on the Raiders Report, Tuesday, July 16th. So again, the way that this show is going to go, I'm going to go in chronological order of how episode 4 starts and just go through all the facts, all the things that I saw that I thought were important around Raiders star receiver Davante Adams. If you're watching the show and you're looking for updates on Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra, St. Brown, I don't care who, Kittle, Debo, this is not the show for you. This is the Raiders Report, and I'm only talking about Davante Adams. If you want to check out my review of episode 1 and 2, that's what this one is right here. Davante Adams tells all. The episode 3, I got to get out of here one with by Davante. This is where you can really start to see some of that frustration boil and boil and boil, really getting frustrated with Josh McDaniels, Jimmy Garoppolo. Had a lot of fun breaking this one down. You can check out both those reviews. Both are available down in the comments and the description of today's show. I also just noticed that people that watch this show, and again, it's the off season, but the fact that 28% of the people that tune into the Raiders Report every single day, 28%. Right now I'm looking at this live audience, 28% of y'all are not subscribed to the show. So if you could do me a real solid, hit that subscribe button, turn on those notifications. That way, every time Chugs and I drop a video, you don't miss it. And with the preseason next week, with training camp next week, preseason a few weeks away, the regular season, nobody does what the Raiders Report does. You're going to have a lot of fun because when we go live, shit gets wild. All right, here we go. We're going to go down in chronological order. Episode 4, title, Give Me the Damn Ball, which literally starts with Davante Adams right in the beginning. And I mean, as soon as episode 4 starts, you see Davante, he's sitting there and he's hanging out, running some routes with Raiders assistant tight end coach Mitch Singler. And I couldn't figure out if it was like during the Jets game week 9 and then they ended up going like back in time to week 7. But I did really enjoy it. One of the things that I thought was cool, because I say this all the time, that Davante's not the most athletic receiver in the NFL. What makes Tay amazing is his route tree, his ability to get off the ball, and he's an assassin when it comes to running routes. Like, I don't know too many people that are as good as Davante being able to run an entire route tree. And I did a video a few weeks ago just kind of breaking down some formations, talking about 12 personnel, all that. If you guys don't know what an NFL route tree looks like, this is kind of like the simplest form of it. So a lot of people call it the 9 route, the 9 go, which is just that straight away going for it. And Davante's been, unfortunately, one of the worst receivers in the NFL receiving the go route. That's probably due to the fact that the quarterback play we've had the past 2 seasons. But every single route on this tree, Davante is able to run it. He's able to run at a high level. Justin Jefferson said that. Multiple coaches, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, said that, hey, man, you're a top 2 receiver, and you're not number 2. Let's keep on rocking here, going through some of the takeaways from episode 4 of the Netflix series. Then the show jumps to week 7 versus the Chicago Bears, and literally right off the bat, it was a shot to the heart, and because it's just Hoyer throwing a pick 6. This is a really tough game to watch. Remember, it was the Tyson Bagent game. Raiders lose 30-12 to the Chicago Bears, a team that, was not very, they weren't great, especially in that one football game. And then Adams' frustration, it's just continuing to build and build. So, you could see it early on in a few episodes that he's getting mad, and just like anything in life, when something happens and it happens over and over and over again, you can only take so much, and that's one thing Josh McDaniels was good at, just having the same issue, just be a bigger one, a bigger and bigger one. So by this time, it's 3 straight weeks. Adams showing his frustration that he's not getting involved, and the offense has been sucking. And when you look at these numbers right here, Jeremy said it to me today, he's like, when you look at the numbers at the end of the season that Tay had, and then you think of how bad it was right around this time of the year with Josh McDaniels, the fact that he was still able to put up the numbers that he did was pretty mind-blowing. So then McDaniels starts getting some of the heat. And people that watch this show know that I was trying to put the heat on McDaniels the moment he was hired. I've never been a believer in the guy. And it was cool to then start to see that, okay, this is the time of the year we were like, holy shit, this might actually happen. coward. He talks about how Adams needs to start getting the ball or else, Josh McDaniels is going to end up getting fired. Adams then goes ahead and he says that he wants an opportunity, especially since the offense looks like dog shit. And that's his word, dog shit. Because Adams was saying, not the whole, wins and losses thing, he looks at greatness. He's simply also just saying, if we're going to lose football games and I'm not getting an opportunity, that's dog shit. So because the offense is bad, it's broken, let's fix it. I can help fix it. I'm Davante Adams. So then one of the things that the episode does, and I really like episode 4 because it's a lot of concentration on Amon-Ra St. Brown. Remember, the Raiders, they end up playing the Lions week 8. And then also there's a little bit of extra talk around Justin Jefferson in episode 5. We'll talk about that tomorrow. But the focus right now is on Amon-Ra St. Brown and the Detroit Lions getting ready for Monday Night Football up against the Silver and Black. And lots, and I mean lots at stake in this game for McDaniels. Tay flat out said, let's see, this is like the last shot. And when I saw Devante say that on this Netflix series, and when you just see all the conversations that Devante is having on the sidelines, you could tell that there was even Devante knew, if we don't put it together this game, this could be really, really bad. Devante then says before the Detroit Lions game, he's just got to try to figure this shit out. We're wasting too much time. So here's another example of Tay just saying, I don't have all day. I am getting older. I came to Las Vegas to play with Derek Carr. I came to Las Vegas to go out there and try to win. We're not doing it at a high level, and just the frustration just continuously boiling. And if there's one takeaway that I've seen from Netflix and from Devante in this series, he was not afraid to tell anybody how frustrated he was. Former teammates, former coaches, current teammates, he's going up there, he's talking to people. Now, maybe Netflix really focused on it, but he's not afraid to express how frustrated that he was. Devante, before the game gets going, to Jimmy Garoppolo, let's not make it more complicated today. Simplify it and play fast. That's all he wanted to do, because if there was one thing that we used to always say, Josh McDaniels, I don't know how he did it, but he would overcomplicate the simple. That would then fall down to Jimmy Garoppolo, fall down to the offense, and you're sitting here wondering, how the hell do we have this offense and we can't move the football? It's because we're overcomplicating shit. Jimmy G to Devante in the end zone is how they go to this next clip, and I laughed out loud because I can remember watching this happen live where the Raiders are marching the football. They're driving, and then Jimmy Garoppolo back foot throws a flutter ball into double coverage, and it was 10 yards underthrown, picked off, intercepted, and then Devante comes jogging off the field, right? And what's crazy is Devante to Jimmy is on the sidelines, and he's sitting there telling him, hey, man, all that matters is just going out there and having fun. He wanted Garoppolo to have fun. He wanted the Raiders to have fun because we could tell that the Raiders were not having any fun. Hell, think about how often we've heard it this offseason of players saying, well, we're actually allowed to have fun this season. All Devante was trying to do was rally the troops, rally his quarterback in a time where he knew that they were really, really struggling. So at this point in episode 4, the Lions are up 16-7 at halftime. If there's another thing that I remembered from last season, it's how many low-scoring games there were, especially in the middle of the season. So at halftime of the game, it's 16-7, okay? Now we fast forward a little bit. Devante flat out said that everybody's, thinking a little bit too much. It's a little too tense, and he's trying to keep spirits high. I wanted to put in the note, okay, I'm glad Chuck's doing it. I didn't even know if he was going to do it. And this is me saying this. The Raiders were playing with tight buttholes. If you're playing with a tight butthole and you can't release, you can't relax, you're going to be walking out there with a boom up your butt. You know what I mean? You're not going to be able to succeed. You're not going to be able to play football at a high level. And Devante telling Jimmy, let's just go out there, let's play fast, let's stop thinking about it. People are thinking too much. The Raiders were bad last season for a lot of reasons, right? But one of the biggest reasons was Josh McDaniels just didn't allow people to go out there and have a good time. You're not going to do anything well in life unless you enjoy doing it. And the Raiders didn't like playing for Josh McDaniels. So then, when you see Devante getting frustrated, and this was something that was pretty well known to the media, we talked about it on the show a bunch, and the tea leaves were showing where there's smoke, there was fire, and then they panned to Amon-Ra St. Brown, and they panned to some of these Lions receivers, and they're like, dude, you can tell how frustrated Devante is getting. And you could see it on the field. That Tay was absolutely getting frustrated. What's crazy is this next play here. And I think this is what almost broke Davante Adams. Where Devante looks at Jimmy Garoppolo and he goes, hey, I'm going to beat my guy. I'm going to throw my hand up and I'm going to be there. Literally says that to Jimmy before the play happens. So what happens? Davante works his guy, and he is 20 yards open. In fact, I don't think Davante's ever been more open in his entire career. Garoppolo throws just an absolute wounded duck, and for the first time all season, Jimmy G outthrew somebody because he had to crow hop to throw it 40 yards, and he couldn't do it, and it falls incomplete. And as soon as that happens, St. Brown goes, I know that he is hot, bro. Adams was heated, and he was mad. He comes walking off the field, and he's throwing F-bombs around, and he goes, this shit is effing pathetic, bro. And it's another example of something bad happening in the game. Davante's frustrated because he had an opportunity. He did everything right, but because the quarterback play was so damn bad, couldn't get his hands on the football. Then he goes, just throw the effing ball. I'm tired of this effing bullshit. For like 3-4 straight weeks, Davante's on the sidelines like, can I get a QB that can throw me the football? Raiders finish this game with 157 yards of offense on Monday Night Football and lose 26-14. 157 yards of total offense. So that means the last 4 games that Davante Adams has played, this is his stat sheet. So we're paying a guy 5 years, $140 million, traded everything that we did, and he's one of the best receivers in the NFL. If you ask all 32 NFL GMs, give me the top 5 receivers in the NFL, all 32 NFL GMs. I think if you were to ask 100 NFL fans, give me the top 5 receivers in the NFL. Davante Adams is going to be somewhere in that top 5 with everyone, and you can't always say that. And the fact that we're putting up these numbers with Davante, absolutely disgraceful. Coming up next here, though, on our Episode 4 breakdown is a day that I'll always remember. It's one of the happiest days I've ever had here at Chat Sports. It's one of the happiest days I've ever had as being a Raider fan. And if you want to talk about just a weight off the shoulders is what happens here next. And it was 24 hours later. And I can remember, I'm sleeping. I get a phone call from Jeremy, and he goes, they did it. I'm like, what do you mean they did it? He goes, they did it. And at 1 a.m. Eastern time, the Las Vegas Raiders, they fired Josh McDaniels, and we went live for 26 hours. I'm going to say for a year straight, because I knew the Raiders were going to fire McDaniels. I knew that the cancer was never going to end up working out, that the clown was never going to work with the silver and black, because if you can't be a leader of men, you can't be a head football coach. And I said for a year, hey, when it happens, we're going to go live for 24 straight hours. We brought the commitment to excellence. So did the nation. I mean, there was one guy, Nico Laz, watched the entire 26 hours straight. That's mind-blowing to me. And that's why you should subscribe to the Raiders Report, because we do shit like that. But Davante said that it was necessary changes. And he's right. In life and anything in general, if you're not getting the job done, especially if you're at the highest peak, we're going to be able to find somebody else that can do your job and do it a little bit better. And it was the necessary change. The Raiders had no other things to do. Hell, they should have fired him a long time ago. Really shouldn't have even hired him in the first place. And when the show ended up going live, and we're sitting there, and I can remember it was like 3, 4, 5 a.m., and I'm looking at the clock going, holy shit, I still got 21 hours left to do this. My question is this. I want to know from the people down below that watched that 26-hour live stream, and I wish that I could show y'all this video, but it's also the first time that we ever went live for this long, and we found out that YouTube doesn't save the video if it's over 12 hours. So we ended up going live. I still have some clips on my phone, but if you watched and you hung out with us for the 26-hour live stream, I want you to spam 26 down below, and I want to give some shout-outs later on this week just because watching Episode 4 brought back so many good memories from this one. So then it goes to Ian Rappaport, and he's like talking about how, nothing was right in Vegas. This was the right move that they had to make. And I want to make this point clear because, and I get it. I don't do this show, and I don't want people to be like, oh, Mitch, is this XYZ? And I don't want to be the person that wants to act like a beat reporter, an insider. I don't want to be a beat reporter. I don't want to be an insider. I want to be a normal Raider fan that hangs out and talks Raiders football with y'all, has a good time. But, I do get frustrated when people are like, oh, it doesn't have sources. I have some sources, just like everybody has some sources. And a lot of mine are, to be honest, a lot of Raiders players. I've been able to make a lot of good friendships, I guess, with some of the guys on the team. And one of the stories that we put out a week before Josh McDaniels was fired was just, the whole multiple Raiders players telling me that they want him gone. One of the players told me it's the worst feeling on offense when the defense calls out your plays and knows what you're running. And Chicago did that constantly. You can see the date, October 23rd. And then I put out a video talking about how multiple Raiders players wanted Josh McDaniels fired. The reason why I do think it's really important for people to subscribe to the show is because we're going to talk about everything that ends up going down. The good, the bad, the ugly. That's what Raider Nation to me is. That's what family needs to do, especially at this time of the year. If there's anything I learned over last weekend, you need to be able to talk about all the things, even if it's sometimes stuff that you don't want to hear. But my point is, players were talking about it. I talked about it. People called me a liar. A week later, it ended up happening. Antonio Pierce then is hired as the interim head coach. And if you want to talk about a light switch with the team, a light switch with the organization, a light switch with that fan base, where we felt inspired again. AP steps up into that podium and he goes, it's a new day, it's a new era, it's a new mindset. And the moment that Antonio Pierce took over as the interim head coach, it did. It felt like a new day, a new era, a new mindset, a chance for hope yet again. And the team felt rejuvenated after moving on from McDaniels. It finally gave him a reason of, you know what? We can play for a guy that we want to play for. We're not just going out there and we're not just wasting our time, because I know a lot of players felt like that they were wasting their time with McDaniels. And then the show randomly jumps to Devante sitting in a golf cart with Dexter Fowler, which I thought was like one of the most random former MLB name drops that I've seen in a while. So he's out there golfing with Dexter Fowler, and I'll kind of tell you what happens here with Fowler in just a moment. But for those of you that do not know, I'm doing a Raiders meetup Saturday, July 20th at 1 p.m. Here is the address if you want to come hang out with us. We'll be there for a few hours. It's a restaurant called Matito's. It's owned and operated by a diehard Raider fan. I did an event probably back in 2019 at a different location. Had a lot of fun. If you can't make it by 1 p.m., I'm sure we're going to be there for a few hours. So please, it's going to be family friendly. If you got kids, hey, bring them. It's all good. I'd love to be able to meet as many people as I can for that watch the Raiders Report. It's going to be a good time. It's the day right before training camp gets going. We made it through the dog days of the season. It's time to let our hair down and have a little bit of fun. Let's keep moving here. So Fowler asked, what's the vibe like right now in the locker room? And Devante said it's way better. Just flat out way, way better. And I like hearing this kind of stuff because, again, yes, Devante's on camera, but Devante also is just like himself. He's just talking to his buddy Fowler and just being very honest with him. Adams also said it was the same shit after every loss, and McDaniels would take the air out of it, which, when you hear the whole context of the story, it doesn't really surprise me that the Raiders would have, a bad practice, a bad game, and then, or even like when they would do stuff good, McDaniels would just figure out a way to just suck all the air out. And when you do that, people stop paying attention, people stop listening. It's kind of like a teacher when they're teaching you whatever it is, and you're like, this guy's just talking out of his ass. Think about McDaniels and all of his press conferences. I felt like I was wasting my time hearing them. And that's the way the players felt, especially, in learning situations. So then the show jumps to week 9 versus the New York Giants in the stadium, man. You could see it. It was a breath of fresh air. I mean, that day, when you think about that game where it's Monday Night Football against the Lions, week 8, and then you go to that following game against the Giants at Allegiant Stadium. For how many people were at that game? Because I remember doing the show and being like, it's a brand new season. I literally felt like it was week 1 all over again. So then it talks about what the Raiders are going to do at the quarterback situation, and Davante Adams says that he signed off on the benching of Jimmy Garoppolo, which shouldn't surprise anybody. Tay also said that they needed the change for me to stay a Raider. This line to me is, I think, extremely important because I said it last episode, and I had a few people get mad at me for saying it, but it's the truth. When you watch Netflix receiver series, the biggest takeaway that I have gotten is this. If the Raiders struggle this year with their quarterback play again, and I know that I don't want to even think about an idea or a world where Davante Adams wants to be traded, but we've seen it in the Netflix series. And, there's been plenty of rumors out there where there's smoke, there's fire. If the Raiders struggle at quarterback again, it would not surprise me. And I'm talking like really bad struggle, kind of like what happened last season. If that happens again, Devante, it would surprise me if he wants out. Because when you listen to how frustrated he is, his family is, and everybody around him, it would not shock me. Adams then continues going. He's like, I'm not going to be complaining if the offense looks the way that it should. And this is something that I was happy Devante kind of addressed in the show just because so many people were ripping on him for his wins and losses and greatness comment. But Davante was just like, my goal is to win a Super Bowl. And even if we win a football game, if we win and it looks bad, we're not really accomplishing our goals. So even if Davante's not getting the work, but they go out there, and if you remember, the Raiders had, I want to say they were up 24-0 at halftime, and he was like, I'm not going to complain if the offense looks the way that it should. And Davante absolutely held up to that side. So the Raiders beat the Giants 30-6. It was an absolute beatdown. I actually thought that they took their foot off the gas in the second half from my mental notes from what I remember from that game. Tay looks at AP and he says, hey, man, congrats, big dog. And it just felt like, like we did it. Like, we freaking did that. We went through a lot of bullshit, but we got to that right situation, and congratulations to you. After the football game, Wink Martindale walks up to Tay and he goes, you're top 2, and you're not number 2. It's just more respect to one of the best in the biz, and being able to see Davante and just how he goes about his business on and off the field was really cool to see in this episode. So then they go to the locker room, and, this was a really cool. A lot of videos, a lot of cool experiences from this, where this is the game that the Raiders, they're smoking on the cigars. The video that I did the next day, I can remember it. I titled it, Suck It McDaniels, just because it was, we felt like we finally won something together. And I love that instead of taking the time to be like, you know what, this is about me or whatever, Davante, he goes up there to talk, and he doesn't go up there and says anything. He just says, hey, game ball to Aiden O'Connell. Gives it to the rookie, gives him a big opportunity, and I think for Davante, it meant a lot for him too, because for him to sign off on Jimmy Garoppolo, Aiden O'Connell needed the work. Aiden worked, and I think it's one of the reasons why you're seeing early on Davante saying like, hey, Aiden's this. Aiden's the QB1. He's sticking with his QB, and I respect that. And just seeing how happy that the team was after the Giants win, it did, man. It totally gave me chills from all the players. You got Mark Davis in the locker room, Max Crosby smoking on that pack. I mean, there's Tillery, Byron Young. I mean, it was the whole team. It was a celebration, and it was a celebration because they knew that they defeated the cancer that's named Josh McDaniels. Now, I know this, man. We got a lot of Raiders jerseys available. If anybody wants a Davante Adams jersey, all you got to do is go to chatsports.com/Raiders jerseys. We got new ones dropping all the time. There's some old jerseys. There's Max Crosby jerseys. Bottom line, you need a Raiders jersey. This link's always going to be working, and I put that for you down in the comments and in the description of today's show. So the way that we're going to end this is Davante said this to his daughter, which I thought was cool because for people that followed the Raiders last season, 20 points was like something that the offense never did. It took them until week 9 of the regular season for their offense to score 20 points. That can't happen, right? If you're actually trying to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish, you got to go out there and you got to do it. And he's got both of his daughters in his arms, super cute moment, and he goes, we scored 20 points. And you could see how fired up Davante Adams was to be able to share that moment with his family, to be able to share that with his daughters, because football, it's a frustrating game. And for what Davante has had to go through the last 2 years, and you can see the frustration, which is why that Week 9 game after McDaniels was just probably a game that, man, it's up there with when the Raiders, Derek Carr, timeout on the Chargers to make the playoffs for me. It's a game I'll never forget. So what about this? I want you to grade episode 4 of Receiver. A, B, C, D, or F. If you want to go check out all the other grades that I gave for all the other episodes, please go check those out as well. I said it when I started the show, and I mean it. This was my favorite episode of Receiver that I've watched so far. This is an A-plus grade for me. From the struggles early on to the firing of McDaniels to seeing them get that dub against the New York Giants, having Antonio Pierce take over, it just really hit home for me just because I think I speak on behalf of a lot of Raider fans that are watching this show. When the Raiders fired McDaniels and then a few days later we end up winning that game of the Giants, you're like, Raider Nation is finally back on track. Davante Adams is finally back on track, and we're moving in the right direction. It felt really good. So for that, I'm going to give it an A-plus grade.